Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the recovery of our country. Now, when it comes to the question about kids and classes and COVID-19, we know that there's no scientific reason for school districts to shutter the doors of their facilities. The reason I say this is due to the fact that kids are more likely to die from the flu than from the coronavirus. And we don't normally shut our schools down because of the flu. So why would we do this for the coronavirus? Furthermore, listen, the science also leads us to believe that children aren't significant vectors of transmission of the COVID-19 virus, which is to say that teachers shouldn't be concerned about catching COVID-19 from their students. Now, with all this being the case, we should take a moment to ask, why are public school officials choosing to keep their school buildings closed for in-person instruction? Why are so many teacher unions ignoring the science as they protest the reopening of our schools? And why are so many teachers calling for schools to remain closed until we have, a safe way to reopen? Well, in order to answer this question, I want to consider some of the demands that have been presented by a coalition of 13 teacher unions who are working hard together with the Democratic Socialists of America to keep our schools closed. Here are some of the requirements that they've put forth before they're willing to reopen the schools. The first I want to point out is a police-free school. They want police-free schools. Now listen, the only reason why we have police at our public school campuses is because teachers aren't allowed to detain and discipline students who get out of control. Listen, if a teacher can't detain a violent student and the police aren't there to deal with it, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be good. Another demand that these teacher unions are making, though, it's a massive infusion of federal money to support the reopening, funded by who? By taxing billionaires and Wall Street. Wait, what? Why do we need to tax the rich who are already being taxed in order to reopen the schools with the taxpayer funding that's already been collected? We've already collected all the money necessary for reopening the schools. So why are they asking for more money? And why are they extorting wealthy Americans by withholding the education from our kids today? Makes no sense. Another demand made by this coalition of teacher unions, it's direct cash assistance to those who are not able to work or who are unemployed and other critical social needs. Or in other words, they want the taxpayer to give more money for people who ended up having to quit their job because they were forced to stay home and take care of their kids who can't go back to school. It's absolutely brilliant. They want more money so that they can keep the schools closed. One of my favorites, it's the demand for equitable access to online learning. That's what they want. Equitable access for online learning. In other words, these teachers aren't willing to provide equitable access for every child to come and learn at our tax-funded facilities until the day when every student in America is able to attend classes online from home. Or to put it more simply, they're not willing to reopen the schools until there's no reason to reopen the schools. Genius! It makes perfect sense. Another example of this politically driven agenda, it can be seen in a statement made by the leaders of the National Education Association. They encourage schools to remain closed until when? Until leaders can ensure that school building reopening plans are inclusive and equitable for all educators and students by humanizing learning environments and designing spaces that are situated in the experiences of communities of color, not just through white, cis, hetero, and able-bodied lenses. In other words, the leaders of the National Education Association wants the doors of our schools completely shuttered until every person in America agrees to support inclusivity and equity for all. Now, without debate, this is a wonderful goal. We ought to provide an education system that welcomes every child regardless of their life experience. But what does this goal have to do with COVID-19? What does this goal of having an inclusive, equitable school system, what does this goal have to do with the coronavirus? And the answer is absolutely nothing. It's completely political. As we consider all of this insanity, there's no doubt in our minds here that teacher unions all over America are using this pandemic, and they're using the panic of this pandemic for political purposes. Rather than embracing the science that shows the relative safety of reopening our schools, teacher unions are extorting American taxpayers as they hold the education of our kids hostage until all of their demands are met. With that being the case, listen, it's time for us to elect leaders. Leaders who allow every parent to use the educational funds allocated for each student in the way that they see fit. In this way, parents will be able to use the tax dollars dedicated for their child to enroll their kids in the school of their choice. We ought to give parents the right to choose the school of their choice. And in this way, Christian parents will then be able to use those educational funds to go and enroll their children in a school that's actually open. And in a school where kids are not only learning about reading and writing and arithmetic, but a school where they're also learning about the truth of God's word and the incredible heritage that we have here in America. With this as our goal, I encourage every Christian, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God and for the benefit of our children.